Hello, everyone, and welcome to Malu's Resilient People podcast. My name is Mara. I'm a writer, a healing therapist, and a life coach who have met hundreds of people with amazing life experience to be shared. Stay tuned and feel empowered with these inspirational stories. Patrick Hill is our guest today, a New Zealander living in London where he became a teacher and a life coach. He has himself overcome many traumatic events in his life. He defines himself as a tough man, and the sentence, "What doesn't kill you make you stronger," is his best definition. Patrick will help you to see life with a different eyes. Hi everyone, and welcome to Resilient People podcast. Today with me we have Patrick Hill. Hi Patrick, thank you for being here today. So Patrick, can you present yourself to our listeners out there?
Right, so I'm Patrick. I'm a New Zealander but live in London. I'm a business and personal coach, and I also teach part-time. And I guess my real passion is making sure that people live really well.
Why do you think you are a resilient person and that you deserve to be here today?
I deserve to be here because I'm here. Traveled a long way for this. When I was thinking about this, I think probably the situation and time in my life that illustrates this best was when I was 38, so that's 10 years ago now. A whole series of things had kind of culminated, and I remember it was a hot summer that year, so that would have been 2013, and I was not in a good space. I was depressed. I was extremely anxious. I couldn't leave the house. And the story behind that was I, at the age of 38, had finally accepted I'd been abused as a kid. And it's not that I didn't think it was abuse. I did not want to use the word abuse, because as soon as I did, it really was. And so I was 38, and I remember this hot summer, I was in my garden, I was home alone, my partner was away, and I was looking at this tree in my garden, and the thought was, I know that tree will take my weight. And this other thought was, and there's also a full bottle of vodka under the stairs. And at that point, I'd been sober for a very long time. And this other little voice goes, actually, you're really tired, you need to go to sleep. And so I did. I went to sleep. Sober. A week later, I paid someone to come and cut that tree down. So I did not want that thought to be a part of my story. That was not how my story was going to end. Then the next day, I remember I called a really close friend and I said, I need to see you. I need some help. And he came over, and he was actually a mental health nurse at the time, and he said, your eyes are dead. We need to get you to see your GP urgently. And what he could see, what I couldn't see, was I was incredibly depressed. And it was a dark time. And not only had I accepted that this stuff that happened to me as a teenager was abuse, but at the same time, I'd started therapy, and I'd started the process of reporting this historic crime to the police in New Zealand. And what happened was all the stuff from 23 years ago came rushing back. And so I was 38, feeling like a 14-year-old teenager, and I was scared.
Have you been hiding yourself all those years?
No. I used alcohol and drugs a lot at the period where I was abused up into my early 20s when I got sober. And I've been sober a very, very long time now, just over 24 years. But accepting that you've been abused is something you don't want to do, because there is so much stigma and shame. You know, one in five females are abused, 1 in 6 males are abused. When you put those percentages together, that's a frightening statistic. That's over a third of people. And alcohol, drug problems, and mental health problems are a given if you've been abused. At some point, that's going to happen.
It was a kind of refugee.
It was an awful combination of things. So I had this stuff happening. I reported it to the New Zealand police, and the process had begun towards prosecution. And I knew of other people who had been abused as well, even though they hadn't told me directly, I could tell. And at that point in time, I was a senior leader in a very high-pressure, stressful primary school in South London. And my behaviour was not good because I had reverted, because of this trauma that had been triggered, to this teenager. And so this was happening. And then I spoke to my boss at the time and said, look, I'm not well. There's some personal stuff going on and I need to deal with this. And so I went off on sick leave. And she used that as an opportunity to get rid of me. She didn't particularly like me for other reasons. But the combination of my personal stuff and the professional stuff was just this.
A bomb.
It was a bomb. It was an absolute bomb. And I didn't want to die. I wanted the pain to stop. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I think, unfortunately, for a lot of people, they end up dying before they give the pain a chance to stop. And your question of what makes me a resilient person is a really simple and good question. And I think not that you necessarily have to qualify that to other people, but for the purposes of your podcast, I chose to do another day. But the key is I chose to take action different to what I'd done before.
Cutting the tree.
Cutting the tree. It was metaphorical and literal and so important. Cutting that tree down changed me. The tree was dying, so it had to go anyway, but it wasn't going to take me with it. And I think when it comes to our hardest times in life, and we will all have them, pain is inevitable, but suffering and misery is a choice. We are all going to have a lot of pain, but we can get through it moment by moment. But the key is we cannot do it alone. Lots of people having a hard time will try and soldier on and do it on their own. They don't want to talk about it.
Do you believe on the sentence they say, pain cures pain?
Pain cures pain. I think a painful story shared well brings hope, which cures pain. The thing that I now know from the work I do with people and the work I've obviously done on myself and still do is we only heal in connection and community. We cannot do it alone. And our culture and our families and religion isn't very good at supporting us.
So society is still very closed off to people.
We're kind of taught that you have to be strong. You know, those classic things that you will have heard a million times. Don't cry, stop crying, why are you crying? And in extreme cases, I'll give you something to cry about. The crying is the healing. So when someone's crying, hand them a box of tissues or say, like a close friend of mine did, he said to me 2 words I will never forget. He said, keep crying.
Washing over.
If you don't cry, you are repressing and suppressing, and it will make you sick. And that's the truth. And I cried a lot. I had to, because it wasn't just the 38-year-old crying. It was this teenager who was trapped and alone and had nowhere to turn. Those tears needed to come up and out.
From years and years of suffering.
Yeah. A lot of pain. And even though I was 14 years sober at the time, I hadn't dealt with this. I now know why I drank and took drugs like I used to, because I needed some mechanism or tool to help me. But
and how did you deal with that, with the addiction?
I got support with that too. No one gets sober and stays sober alone. No one. Whether it's through a religious support group or a 12-step fellowship or, I don't know, whatever your tool is, nobody gets sober alone. Nobody. The research tells us. Most people relapse and relapse and relapse. And if they're lucky, they'll stay alive. But most people stay alive and live miserably in addiction. I think it's something like 10% of people will stay sober.
Out of
those who try.
Quite an impressive number, no?
Well, it's horrific. And you look at how people are with alcohol and drugs now, it's like it's become a norm, and it doesn't help people. It doesn't help people get well. And, when I think about being resilient, from a very, very young age, I had this thing in me that I wasn't taught it. I just had it. I had the gift of, I will get through everything.
Don't you think that everyone gets that gift, but they just not able to see it?
I don't think everyone gets it. Just as I don't think everyone gets the gift of being able to sing. Well, everyone can sing, but some just do it badly. I don't think, from what I've seen, I don't think everyone does, because we're all different. But I had that from a very, very young age. And I was bullied terribly as a kid. So it kind of set my brain up to, I'm going to survive this. You will not destroy me. And so that was when I was really young. So that kind of, I guess, fortified me in some ways. The pain of that strengthened me to know that I could endure extreme pain. And, give me physical pain any day. Emotional or psychological pain is the stuff that destroys lives. Much more than physical. Yeah.
So do you think nowadays the person that you are today, it was built mainly in a pain situation and on suffering?
The best of me is because of my pain. The only reason I can work with people and the way that I do with my coaching work is because of everything I've been through. There is nothing you or anybody can tell me that is going to faze me, shock me, upset me. Nothing. And because I've been through so much and done so much to myself that has been harmful, I just don't need to judge anything. Because it was judgment and fear and shame that kept me trapped. And most people will get well with the right support at the right time when they choose that they're willing and ready to do the work. But it has to be done in a way where you are completely safe. And, this new client who I referred to earlier, he commented on the incredible emotional and psychological safety he felt on the very first session that we had together. And that is what we all need. Yeah. And I think lots of us, parents, anyone in a position of power with children, not even just children, anyone in relationship with another person, which is all of us, needs to learn what self-compassion is in order to be able to extend that to those they love.
Empathic as well, being empathic.
Yeah. And empathy is obviously a key thing. But some people find that quite hard. But I think there are certain things that we can teach generally so that people can improve on. I don't think it's going to happen because people say, oh, this is a good thing. There's so much research now into the brain and what's required for really good, emotionally sound, healthy, psychologically sound and healthy development. We know what's needed.
We don't do enough.
We do it really badly. And you just look at most relationships and family dynamics. Most people, even from the most loving family, will have dynamics in their family that are really, really unhealthy, that they then just carry that pattern and repeat.
Generation over generation.
Yeah. Look, and it's like hundreds of years worth of crap. And it needs to be challenged and questioned. And I think that's why I love my coaching work so much, is my job is to listen and question and challenge. And the underlying theme being, what's more useful for you? What thought process and what action can you take to make yourself better today? Forget the other people What do you need and want for your health, for your life? This is not a dress rehearsal. We get one shot at this.
Can you tell us how after everything that you have been through, you became a coach? Like, what was the time of your life that you decided, you know what, it's time for me to help others?
I've been helping others since I got sober, was the first thing to say. So I was 24. And one of the reasons I'm still sober is I help other people get sober. You don't stay sober by being insular and not being of service. And I also know for myself, and I think it was Nelson Mandela, he said, success is always on the other side of service. And success for me is making sure that me having been here at all had a positive impact. It will never be about money. I don't care. That does not do it for me. But knowing that I can enrich your life or maybe your listeners' lives, that matters. That leaves a permanent marker. So I got into coaching because I was bored. I had been in every senior leadership position that schools have. I was so sick of meetings going round in circles. I was so sick of being told exactly the same things that I was told 10 years earlier. And I said to my boss, I don't want to be a senior leader anymore. I'm not doing this. I'm bored. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm only going to work with colleagues to help improve their performance. I said, it's not going to cost you any money. I said, this is what I know. This is what I'm going to do. And I did that for a year. And at the end of that year,
in the school that you were in the
school I was in, yeah, and I was teaching part-time then. And at the end of that year of doing this work with colleagues, they gave me a pay increase. They gave me money towards my coaching training. And that was it. And I studied the next year and I got my qualification. And set up my own business, and I've been going for the last 6 years, and I love it. It is the most powerful, quite simple tool, but it requires the individual to make a choice, be ready and willing to think differently, be challenged, and take actions according to where they want to go. Because otherwise you do get stuck in a pattern of repetition, and you will go around in circles.
Most of our people that looks for help, are they able to recognize they need help, or they go in there because someone told them to go? Are they coming because they really understand, I'm here because I need it. I'm not here because my neighbor told me to come.
Tell me to make my bed, and I won't. If I like how my bed looks made, I will do it every single day. I'm a person who makes my bed every morning. We know from research that you can't tell someone to change. You can't tell them, you can't even show them. They've got to want it. Change only occurs from the inside out. I've got a loved one in my life who needs therapy right now and is taking absolutely no action. And what I know from my story and countless others now, and it's a question I ask a lot of my clients, and it's a very simple question, and the question is, have you had enough pain yet? Because I now know that pain is the ultimate motivator. It's not money, it's not relationships, it's not prestige or possessions.
It's when you are tired of
when
suffering.
You are so sick and tired of being sick and tired of suffering and living miserably, that's when you are ready.
So we need to hit the ground floor to
From what I've seen, for the people who change the most and stick with the changes they've made, they have hit a pain point that was so great they never ever want to experience it again. I think it's almost
like a traumatic situation.
It doesn't have to be traumatic. It needs to be such that you're like, oh, I am never doing that again. Whether it's from, I don't know, overeating or having another shit job with an awful boss in a toxic, awful work environment, or overworking, working ridiculous hours, or a relationship that's not fulfilling, or a bad sex life, or whatever it is. Until you have got to the point where you've accepted this is not good enough for my life or for me, you're not going to do anything about it.
The recognizing moment is hard for people.
A moment of clarity is something that I've heard it referred to. I think it's very, very good. I got my moment of clarity to stop drinking and taking drugs when I was 24, when I came out of blackout in a situation that I don't want you or your podcast listeners to hear about. It was horrific. And it just destroyed me just enough for me to go, I'm in trouble, this is unhealthy, I need to stop and do something differently. And I haven't had a drink in 24 years because I still remember that pain point. I don't want to risk. I do not want to risk more pain. But lots of people will think in their worst times, it'll be different next time.
Because that's another thing that sometimes people don't realize. You don't forget the pain that you have been through. You just get over it.
I think what we do with pain is we rationalize it to the point of acceptability so we can stay in our pain patterns. If I use my drinking, for example, it was bad. And it was a downward spiral. And each time I got lower, I was like, oh, it's okay, I survived. And another month would go by and something worse would happen. And then I was drinking and driving. I was waking up in people's driveways. I would wake up coming out of blackout in situations that were compromising to everybody's health. But my brain would go, I survived, it'll be different next time. And that is the fatal flaw with the human brain. It will rationalize things to the point of acceptability so we do not have to change. And that is something that I know I did. And fortunately, I don't do that anymore.
The acceptance of it.
You have to accept that you're fucked on your own. Because if you think you think you know what's best for you when you're in a situation or whatever where it's causing you pain, you will never get out of it. When you look at any elite athlete or anyone at the top of their game that's famous internationally, I use Beyonce a lot. She did not get there alone. You look at the incredible team of people she has around her to keep her at the level she's at. I still go and see my old therapist once a month. Not for therapy, but for a really good conversation to maintain what I built and created. I'm under no illusion that my mind and my emotional psychological
I'm
health,
perfect now and I'm cured.
as soon as you think you're cured or I'm perfect now, you are really fucked. That's not how it works. It's like going to the gym. You want to maintain your health, you keep on going. You don't take 3 years off and think, oh, it's all going to maintain itself. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to eat healthy this week, and then for the rest of the year, you're on takeaways and junk food. The repetition that's required to stay really well is the trick. Do the same thing that you did yesterday. Whatever worked yesterday that was really healthy for you, do it again today. And then when you wake up tomorrow, do it again.
Consistent.
Yeah, and you know, if I think about sobriety, whether it's drink or drugs or food or whatever, the people who I know that have stayed well for long periods of time, they keep choosing the same healthy behaviors. And they're not thinking, oh, I have to do this for the next 20 years. Just do it today. I didn't want to go to the gym today, but I went to the gym today because I knew the benefits would be much greater than having a nap. So I had a nap as well, just to show fun.
Anyway, thank you very much, Patrick. What's your message for the people out there?
I guess the message to anyone who's having a really tough time is hold on, just hang on in there, but pick up the fucking phone and get support. You will not do this alone. And you don't have to.
No one is alone.
And the thing is, and I say to quite a lot of the clients I work with, you are not alone and you never were. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. I'm looking forward to see you in the next episode with another inspiring and powerful story. Follow us on Spotify and check the links below to learn more about us. Stay tuned and see you soon.